Okay, part two of this series, or rather the second toxicity that we're going to be talking about. And this is a global issue. Okay, this is persistent organic pollutant toxicity, or POP toxicity. Again, I want to keep stressing, and I will keep saying the same thing. Do your own research. I will put together a list of my resources that I've come across, and so you can go ahead and make up your own mind about these things. But anyway, so this toxicity, as with probably a few of these, are a little bit out of our control. They are within our control, but they're not within our control, if you know what I mean, because this particular one is to do with the food. Our food system, and I mean everything about our food system, from things we get from the ground to animals that are being, killed and slaughtered, etc., to harvesting from the sea and such like. So this toxicity is where man has produced chemicals, again, that we put in place for things like pesticides, to enhance the production levels of plants and fruit and vegetables and animals, etc., to increase. So again, we're talking about the money aspect to this, sometimes being more important than the effect it has on our food chain and the amount of food that we eat. Now, I'm not going to start going on about veganism and vegetarianism, etc., etc. What you choose to eat is what you choose to eat. I have no control over what you want to eat. What you put in your body has an effect on how ill and sick you are throughout your life. Now, everyone is different. Everyone's levels of dealing with toxicity on all of these varies. So what may be okay for me might not be okay for you, and vice versa. Your body might be able to cope more with higher levels of toxicity in certain food types. I mean, let me give you a classic example. You could get a family who are all eating the same kind of food, and some people will be sick, some people will not be sick, some people will be, will put on weight, and other people can seem to eat a huge amount of food, and sometimes, if you like, the wrong kinds of food, in our opinion, it could be the wrong type of food. And yet they don't get fat. They don't seem to put weight on. And it could also be that, people are smoking, and some people can smoke their whole life and nothing ever happens to them on the outside, or that they don't necessarily suffer. It might all be happening on the inside, but it just doesn't externally manifest itself in cancers or any form of illness or immune system depletion or such like. And so, we have to bear these things in mind, and this is why I say you need to do your own research. You need to listen to your own body. You need to be aware of what your tolerance to these toxicities are, because that is what is more important than looking at what the effects are happening in the external to us. And unfortunately, we tend to live in a society now where some governing body somewhere is saying, well, this level of toxicity is okay to put on food to help it to help it to grow, because we're saying that this is a safe level. Where are they getting that information from? The research and such like that they do is very often short-lived. If you do your own research, you will find that they will do small batches of research and testing about the toxicity levels from putting it on wheat and oats and plants and vegetables, etc., etc., and fruit, and trying to see what happens when we buy it from the supermarket, for instance. and the levels that are acceptable to humans, so that it doesn't make them sick. And of course, you also have to realise that there are groups of people, like I've said, just mentioned, there are groups of people that will react to these chemicals, and there will be the majority of people who will probably go through their whole life eating foods that are covered in these. I mean, there's a dozen here. They call them the dirty dozen. The chemical toxicities that are being used, that are being put into our food, preservatives and colours and all sorts of other things to help prolong the life of food, that are being, ticked off as okay by scientists. Make your mind up whether that's what you want to take on board. If you want to eat huge amounts of processed food, things like sugars, things like foods in the supermarket, pre-prepared foods that are pumped full of unhealthy chemicals to help preserve them and make them look better, and such like, could it be that you're eating these foods and then feeling ill for whatever reason, or that you seem to be susceptible to various viruses and diseases and such like that are going on, that are not really beneficial? Listen to what your body is saying. Do your own research, and you make the choice as to whether you really want a lot of these organic pollutants in your system. Learn how it is being put into your food chain, how the animals are, being diagnosed, and what antibiotics and such like are being pumped into animals in order to make them live longer and not, to be resistant to disease and such like, so that the manufacturers and the producers of all this food can get the maximum amount of money for their product, which is ultimately what it comes down to. They're not producing food to make us feel better. They're making food to make more money. That's how I look at it. This is how I look at it. They have to produce food. The pressure is on for them to produce as much food as possible, not only for them to make money, but also to meet the demands of our society. So we as humans, I think, have to look at whether we want to accept the amount of chemicals that are going into our food, whether we choose to eat these things on a regular basis. Maybe we take the risk of saying, okay, I'm going to lower that risk down, and I'm not going to eat those foods, 7 days a week. I'm going to eat those foods, 3 times a week. And then the other 4 days of the week, I'm going to cook my own food. I'm going to make sure that my own vegetables and fruit and whatever is clean, has less amount of chemical input to it. These pollutants, and therefore the toxicity levels in our system become lowered because we are reducing that risk. We've taken the time to read what's on the packets and say, okay, I really like this product, I like this food, I'm going to eat it, and then I'm going to allow my body to overcome whatever toxicity is in there. There's nothing wrong in that. We probably do that every time we go outside into the environment, without sounding too dramatic about it. But I mean, we walk around. I walk around. I live in a city, so I'm walking around. I'm fortunate enough to sort of live in the suburbs of a city, but when I walk around in the city, I know that probably the following day I'm going to feel pretty crap. I'm not going to feel my best because of the amount of pollutants and such like that I'm breathing in by walking around with lots of traffic and lots of people that are breathing germs into the air and such like. So, these are the things that we have to take on board, and this is why I'm going to keep saying, do your own research, but at the same time, become very aware of, we don't have to be paranoid, but we can become very aware about the types of food that we're eating, and whether we choose to eat that on a regular basis, or whether we choose to just, change our habits, and cut down on those particular types of food. Enjoy them, because there's no doubt about it, some of these foods are really nice. These manufacturers have produced really good product. But do we have to eat them every day? That's really the question that I would ask. Do we have to eat that chocolate? Do we have to eat those crisps? Do we have to eat those candies, those sugar sweets, those, whatever they might be? Do we have to eat so much meat? Do we have to eat so many pizzas? Do we have to eat so many pre-prepared foods? In themselves, takeaways. I love takeaways. I can't eat an awful lot of them, and I never have done in my lifetime, to be honest with you. But there's nothing I enjoy more than getting a takeaway. My wife and I enjoy having a takeaway every now and then, probably not even once a month, because we like the food, but we don't want to eat it every day or every week even. And so, that's the choice that you have to make. Listen to your own body. Be aware that when you eat this food, when you start to cut down on it, your body almost has withdrawal symptoms. And then when you've gone past that, you start eating those foods again, you start really noticing the effect that they have on your body. And you start to notice the effect it has on your gut system. How does it make you feel when you wake up in the morning after you've eaten, let's just take the takeaway as an example. You've eaten a takeaway, or some fast food the day before. Just notice how you feel the following day. Notice everything, and I mean everything about your body, what goes in and what comes out, and what you feel inside. How are you feeling? Do you feel alert? Has that made you, blurred eyes, or, has it upset your gut in some way? And then you have to make the choice, is that really what you want? Or is it just something that you can be aware of every time you eat that particular type of food? There's a choice that you're making. So that's really all I wanted to say about that particular one. Again, we're talking about another layer. So the previous layer was the heavy metal toxicity, and now on top of that we've got the persistent organic pollutant toxicity. And so again, what are we doing? What are we doing in our life? What are we doing in our environment? What are we doing that we can lower our toxicity levels to stop the impact of these things having on our health, short term and long term? So we'll go on to the next toxicity,